Imagine for a second that you could put on a pair of magic glasses, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
And suddenly you could see these invisible, glowing leashes connecting everyone around you.
Like literal leashes.
Yeah, exactly. Like you look at a couple holding hands at a cafe, and there's a thick leash between them. You see a parent texting their adult child, another leash. You see a manager talking to an employee, and, another leash.
Oh, wow.
Right. And almost all of us are holding onto a handle, constantly tugging, pulling, trying to steer the people in our lives.
Which we usually just call like caring for someone.
Exactly. We call it caring or helping or just being a good friend. But what if I told you that from another perspective, every single one of those tugs is actually a crime?
I mean, a crime is a very strong word.
It is. And that brings us to today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a radically uncompromising framework for human relationships. It's based on a translated philosophical essay from March 2011, and it's titled, "Do Not Attempt to Control Others."
Yeah, it's a fascinating document.
Our mission today is to unpack this deeply provocative premise. The idea that trying to control anyone around you doesn't just, make you a toxic person. It fundamentally categorizes you as either a literal criminal or someone suffering from a severe mental illness.
Which is just a wild claim.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this,
Yeah.
because that is an incredibly stark baseline for us to start from. I mean, we're so used to the idea of mutual influence in our daily lives.
Yeah, of course.
You compromise, you negotiate, you nudge the people you love, but this text draws an absolute unyielding line in the sand.
It really does. And that absolute boundary is what sets the tone for this entire philosophy. I mean, the author isn't interested in the gray areas of interpersonal dynamics that we usually debate.
No gray areas at all.
None. The text states that human beings must build equal, friendly, mutually respecting relationships that are 100% devoid of control.
Wow.
Zero exceptions for normal people. If there
Yeah.
is control, there's a violation of human rights. It's a binary system, really.
It's very black and white.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You are either respecting someone's constitutionally endowed freedom or you are a criminal depriving them of it.
And to really understand why this text views interpersonal control as a literal crime, we actually have to look at the flip side first, right?
Yeah, the exceptions.
Right. We have to look at who the author believes actually can be controlled, because they do carve out these very specific, very narrow exceptions.
You do.
The text explicitly lists who is allowed to be subjected to control. It's livestock and poultry, people experiencing severe mental health crises, and the translation actually uses the rather harsh terms idiots and maniacs.
Yeah, that phrasing is definitely jarring.
Very. And finally, criminals. So animals, mental patients, and criminals.
And notice how the text immediately pairs those specific groups with very specific physical institutions.
Right, like where they belong.
Exactly. Feedlots for the livestock, mental health hospitals for the patients, and penitentiaries or prisons for the criminals.
Well,
Here is the crucial caveat the author makes. The only people justified in exercising control over those groups are the designated staff members of those institutions.
oh, I see.
Yeah, so a prison guard can control a prisoner because that is the structural, legally mandated function of the prison.
Which brings us to this concept that I've been calling the zookeeper syndrome in my head as I was reading this.
The zookeeper syndrome. I like that.
Think about it. If those institutions are the only acceptable arenas for control, then what happens when you try to control your friend or your sibling or your coworker?
Stepping out of bounds.
Way out of bounds.
Right.
According to this text, if you attempt to control a normal person, you are essentially treating them like an animal in a feedlot or a prisoner in a cell.
Wow. Yeah.
You are unilaterally casting yourself in the role of a jailer or, a zookeeper?
That's a vivid way to put it, but it's actually darker than a zookeeper, honestly.
Really? How so?
Well, a zookeeper generally wants to keep the animal alive and healthy. The text argues that interpersonal control actively erases the person's humanity. What's fascinating here is the psychological diagnosis the text applies to the controller.
Okay, lay it on me.
The author argues that if you treat a normal, free person as if they belong in a feedlot or a prison, you are completely despising and trampling on human rights and human dignity.
So it's an act of profound disrespect.
Completely. You aren't keeping them safe. You are stripping away their fundamental equality.
So by trying to act like they're superior, you actually become the deviant one.
Precisely. And because you are doing that, the text says you become the criminal.
Right?
Or, in a rather ironic twist, you become the mental patient suffering from a disorder.
Wait, you become the mental patient.
Yeah, because your perception of reality and human equality is so fundamentally broken that you can no longer see the other person as a sovereign being.
Okay, but I have to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
Reading this, I kept thinking, isn't human interaction inherently about mutual influence? Like, we are social creatures.
You are, yeah.
Let's say you have a friend who is about to make a terrible, life-ruining financial decision, and you aggressively intervene to stop them.
Right, you step in.
You hide their keys, you block their phone, you force an intervention. You are trying to control the outcome because you love them. Under this framework, are you suddenly a criminal? Where does this text draw the line between carrying influence and treating someone like livestock?
It's a great question. And it's where the text absolutism is going to be most challenging for you and anyone else listening.
Yeah, because that just sounds like being a good friend.
Right. But for the author, the line is drawn strictly at autonomy. Offering advice, expressing a viewpoint, or sharing your perspective is perfectly fine.
Okay, so talking is okay.
Yes. But the moment you cross into attempting to dictate their actions, manipulate their choices, or force an outcome even under the guise of caring or saving them, you have crossed into control.
Because you're deciding you know better.
Exactly. You have decided that your judgment supersedes their right to self-determination. You've decided they are no longer capable of being a free agent.
Oh, wow.
In your mind, you have equated them to the mental patient or the child who needs a guardian. You've stripped them of their equality.
That is heavy.
The author argues that true respect means allowing a free adult to make their own choices, even if those choices lead to a disaster.
Which is terrifying. I mean, truly terrifying. But let's say you accept that premise for strangers or acquaintances. Where this gets incredibly uncomfortable is when we look at our closest bonds.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the author establishes such a rigid black and white rule regarding freedom, we have to look at where control hides most easily and most intimately, our romantic relationships.
Yeah, the text takes a very intense, critical magnifying glass to modern marriage.
It really does.
It makes the sweeping claim that the vast majority of husbands and wives are actively trying to control each other. And it doesn't just mean overt aggressive control.
Right, it's not just physical.
It lists the specific domains where this happens.
Yeah.
It says economy, emotion, body, thought, spirit, and soul.
That list is wild to me. I mean, economy and body are one thing we can easily picture financial manipulation or physical control.
Sure.
But emotion, thought, spirit, and soul, that is so deeply internal. What does controlling a soul even look like on a random Tuesday night in a normal household?
It's a great question.
To me, that sounds like the guilt trips. That's giving your partner the silent treatment when they don't agree with your political views.
Yeah.
That's getting upset when your spouse doesn't share your exact emotional reaction to a movie or demanding they adopt your spiritual beliefs.
You're hitting on exactly what the author is critiquing. It's the expectation of internal synchronicity.
Internal synchronicity.
Right. When you demand that your partner feel what you feel or believe what you believe just to make you feel secure, the text views that expectation as a form of control.
Wow.
And because of this, the text reaches a startling conclusion. It says most husbands or wives are in essence criminals or mental patients.
That is just so blunt.
Because this intricate web of mutual control is so baked into our traditional concept of marriage, the participants are unwittingly engaging in this criminal deprivation of freedom every single day.
Unwittingly is the key word there, I think. The text makes a really sharp observation about self-awareness here.
It does.
These criminals and patients never recognize themselves as such. It points out that a criminal rarely views themselves as the bad guy in their own story. They always have a justification, right?
Always.
And a mental patient never thinks of themselves as a mental patient. In fact, the author notes that if a mental patient actually realized they were suffering from a delusion, they wouldn't be a patient anymore. They'd be normal.
It's a profound paradox of human behavior. The very nature of the illness, the compulsion to control your partner, blinds you to the fact that you are ill.
That makes so much sense.
Think about it. You think you are just being a good husband or a devoted wife. You think you are protecting the marriage by checking their phone or managing their friendships.
Yeah.
But the text strips all that romanticized language away and says, no, you are just a jailer who has completely forgotten that you are operating inside a prison of your own making.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. It's not just married couples who've been together for decades.
No, it starts way earlier.
The text calls out a very specific, idealized phase of romance. It says that even infatuated lovers or sweeties smack of mental disorders.
Yeah, that line stood out to me too.
And I read that and immediately thought, wait, is the author pathologizing love itself?
That's a huge question.
Is that intoxicating, obsessive feeling of infatuation, the butterflies, the I can't live without you feeling, is that really just a disguised desire to possess someone else's freedom?
If we follow the rigorous logic of the text, yes, absolutely. Infatuation almost always centers on possession.
It does, doesn't it?
Think about the language of modern romance that we celebrate in songs and movies. You're mine. I belong to you. I die without you.
Oh, man. Yeah.
To the author of this essay, that language is terrifying.
Yeah.
It's the language of property. It's the language of the feedlot.
Wow. We literally sing pop songs about wanting to own another person.
We do, every single day. If love becomes about exclusive possession, if it requires the other person to limit their freedom and alter their behavior to make you feel secure, then it has crossed the line into criminality.
So what is true love, then?
True love, in this framework, would require absolute non-attachment. It's the total allowance of the other person's freedom to come and go, physically and emotionally, as they please.
The analogy I keep coming back to is a satellite in orbit.
Okay, I like that.
So true love in this framework is like two satellites. You are caught in each other's gravity. You're constantly influencing each other's path through space, and it's beautiful.
Right.
But the second you try to attach a physical tether and reel the other person in to make sure they don't float away, the orbits crash, the gravity fails, and the whole system is destroyed.
That's a brilliant way to conceptualize it. The tether is the control. And the text argues the tether always destroys the relationship, even if society tells us the tether is romantic.
Well, let's say you survive that romantic minefield, right? You achieve this perfect, detached, satellite orbit love.
A rare feat.
Very rare.
Yeah.
But then the author throws an even bigger hurdle at you, your kids.
Oh, yes, the family dynamic.
Because if possessing a spouse is a crime, how on earth do you raise a child without controlling them?
Well, the text does acknowledge a difference between a young child and an adult. But it states quite plainly that parents who continue to exercise control over their grown-up children are categorized outright as criminals.
It's the ultimate legalistic condemnation of helicopter parenting.
Absolutely.
When your child is a toddler, sure, you have to control them to keep them from running into traffic. You are acting as their guardian. But once they are an adult...
It changes completely.
Yeah, any parental overreach isn't just annoying or overbearing. According to this philosophy, it's a fundamental violation of human rights.
It's a crime.
Think about the listener right now. If you are still trying to control your 25-year-old's career choices, or guilt-tripping them about who they date, or demanding they come home for every holiday, this text says you aren't just being a difficult parent, you are a criminal.
But the text doesn't stop there. It outlines a fascinating escalation in the hierarchy of offenses.
Oh yeah, this part blew my mind.
While a controlling parent is a criminal, an adult child who attempts to control their parents is labeled as not only criminals, but also mental patients.
A double offense.
Yes, it's a double offense.
Which raises an important question. Why the distinction? Why is it worse for the child to control the parent than the parent to control the child?
It's very specific logic.
Because both are violating that sacred rule of freedom, right? Both are putting the other person in a feedlot. So why the added diagnosis of mental illness for the child?
To understand that, we have to look at the mechanisms of how the author views natural order. It likely represents a severe inversion of the natural origin of life in the author's eyes.
Okay, break that down for me.
Culturally and biologically, there is an established, albeit temporary, hierarchy where a parent creates and guides a child. While a parent extending that control into the child's adulthood is a crime of overreach, a child trying to control a parent is a complete rupture of natural logic.
Because the child is trying to dictate the source of their own existence.
Exactly. It's a delusion of authority. It's a fundamental failure to recognize the origin point of your own life and the inherent respect owed to that origin.
Oh, I see.
The cognitive dissonance happening in the child's brain, believing they have dominion over the entity that created them, is so severe that the text labels it a mental illness.
That is so intense.
Therefore, it's not just a crime of action, it's evidence of a deeply disordered mind that has lost touch with reality.
Okay, I'm genuinely struggling
I
here.
don't blame you.
Because we've dismantled traditional romantic power structures. We've dismantled traditional family power structures.
Everything is gone.
Right. If no one can control anyone, how does a society actually function? Let's take it out of the living room and into the real world.
Sure.
How does a grocery store run? How does a company build a bridge? If a manager can't control an employee, doesn't everything just fall apart into total chaos?
That confusion makes total sense, and it's actually the perfect moment to reveal exactly who the author is talking to, because it provides the missing puzzle piece that makes this bizarre text function.
Okay, alrighty.
The text specifically addresses a group of people called Chanyuan Celestials, and it mentions that they reside in the home without marriage and family of Lifechanyuan.
Wait, home without marriage and family?
Yes, the Lifechanyuan is the specific community the author is addressing.
Oh.
It's an intentional community where they have deliberately stripped away the traditional societal structures where personal control normally breeds.
So no traditional marriages.
No traditional marriages, no traditional nuclear family hierarchies. They are trying to build a society from scratch based entirely on this premise of absolute freedom.
That context changes everything. It's not just a self-help book. It's an operational manual for a very specific type of utopian community.
Precisely. And within that community, or even looking at the workplace, the text introduces a very nuanced mechanism to answer your question about how things get done.
How so?
It acknowledges that it is normal for higher authorities to control lower authorities.
No.
So structural control is acceptable.
Huh.
The role of the manager controls the role of the employee. But, and this is a massive distinction, it is abnormal for a superior to personally control an inferior.
Let me make sure I'm translating this mechanism correctly. It means the system can dictate the work, but the human being cannot dictate the other human being.
Yes.
So let's say I'm your boss. If I tell you the spreadsheets are due at 5 p.m., because that's the company policy to meet our client's deadline, that's structural control. We're both just fulfilling our roles within a system.
Exactly.
But if I say you have to stay until 8 p.m. because I said so, and I need you to show loyalty to me personally, that becomes personal control.
You've nailed it. When a boss controls a subordinate on a personal level, their ego merges with the authority of the role. In the consciousness of that boss, they've become the master, and the employee has become the slave. They are no longer two equal human beings operating within a neutral system. They are enacting a master-slave dynamic.
Which is forbidden.
Right, and that violates the core rule of mutual respect.
And the absolute prohibition of that man-by-man control is a central pillar of what the text calls holographic management within the Lifechanyuan community.
Yes, holographic management.
Which is a fascinating term. Think about a physical hologram. Every single piece, even if you shatter it, contains the image of the whole.
That's a great visual.
If one person tries to control another with their ego, it fractures the entire societal hologram.
Exactly. Under holographic management, disputes aren't settled by a dictator telling everyone what to do. Work gets assigned and completed through an adherence to the collective structural needs.
So it's very idealized.
It's an idealistic vision of a self-organizing society. If everyone respects everyone else's absolute freedom, you don't need managers in the traditional whip-cracking sense. You just need people fulfilling their role structurally, entirely devoid of ego or the desire for personal dominance.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from the macro level of a utopian society all the way down to the micro level of texting your mom.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. And the text ends with this incredibly urgent, almost prophetic warning to its readers. It says, when we are currently controlling other people, we must be vigilant. When we try to control others, we must watch out because we are heading for crimes or schizophrenia.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the overarching theme here is that true freedom is terrifyingly absolute.
Terrifying.
It means granting total, unwavering autonomy to everyone around you. Any attempt to restrict a normal person's freedom, whether it's in politics, religion, culture, production, or your own living room, is a violation of their humanity. To the author, it's a corruption of the soul that leads inescapably to either criminality or madness.
It's a standard that is almost impossibly high for most of us to imagine living up to perfectly.
For anyone, really.
It asks you, the listener, to look really, really closely at your own life today. Think about the last time you gave your best friend unsolicited advice about their relationship, and you got mad when they didn't take it.
Right.
Under this framework, you weren't being helpful, you were trying to restrict their autonomy. How often do we justify our controlling behavior? How often do we dress it up in the language of love?
We do it constantly.
I'm just looking out for you. I know it's best for you. If you loved me, you'd do this. We weave these invisible leashes every single day, and we desperately tell ourselves they are lifelines, not restraints.
The profound challenge of this text is to strip away all of those comfortable justifications, to recognize that another person's autonomy is sacred, and that your desire to shape their life even for their own supposed good is inherently a selfish act.
Yeah.
It's prioritizing your comfort, your anxiety, and your vision of reality over their fundamental right to be a free agent.
Which brings us right back to that invisible leash, back to the zookeeper in the feedlot.
Yep.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own after this deep dive ends, because this text pushes us to the absolute edge of what it means to be in a relationship with another human being.
It really does.
If true love, true respect, and true humanity require the complete and utter absence of control, wait, let me rephrase that. If they require the absolute lack of control, what is the difference between setting a healthy personal boundary to protect your own freedom and subtly creating a feedlot to restrict the freedom of someone you love? It's a razor-thin line, and according to this philosophy, your very sanity might depend on knowing the difference.